Hello, Tea family. How are you this evening? I hope you're warm. It is very chilly where I am currently. Sorry, it's late. When I woke up this morning and got up, it was 8 degrees, and then it dropped down to 7 degrees this morning. So it's a little warmer now, but yeah, very cold where I am. Hopefully, you're much warmer where you are. Say hello. Let us know what you're drinking. If you're watching this on the replay, still want to hear you to say hello and drop in the word replay. And so I can say hi later. Now, the other thing I would love to say is let us know what you're drinking tonight, whether it's hot chocolate or tea or whatnot. I am drinking something very special, and we're going to go ahead and start with that real quick. And I am going to start with my handy dandy assistant is here, and he's not drinking anything right now. That's what he's telling us. But I am going to be drinking some Appealing. We have a little bit left, and I do want to shout that out. Appealing technically stops in November, but I happen to have 3 1-ounce packs left. So if you want to order those, that's still fine. Just shoot me a message of some sort or an email, and I can put them aside from you. Kim is drinking White Friday tonight along with water. Water is very important, especially when it's cold and dry, Kim. I highly approve of the water at any point in time. But I do have, and I have a bag because we were trying to get everything ready and moving around, and there was a lot of moving parts today. So Appealing, of course, that is black tea with cinnamon and apples. And it is usually only available September, October, November. Like I said, I do have a little bit left. So if you get your order in quick, I don't want to waste it. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And let's see. And so hello to Kim and hello to Diane. I'm watching the comments. Rich is usually really good about letting me know when people come on and saying hello so that I can see it up in the comments and say hello to everybody. But I am going to find my phone. And do you have the timer ready? He's not that organized today. There's a reason for that. Life has been really, really crazy. And there's my phone. Okay. And so I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock. This is a first brew. For those of you that have caffeine issues, this would not be the perfect time for you to drink a first brew of a high caffeinated blend like I am. But fortunately, I don't have that problem, or I don't have that problem yet. We'll see what happens in the future. Hot lemon zinger. That's always a nice one to have in the evening as well. See? All right. What are we going to be talking about today? Anybody remember? For the live, we're doing questions and answers. So we're going to have fun. We're going to be interactive, very relaxed today. It's been cold. It's been a long day. We're definitely going to keep it relaxed. So in the chat or comments, even if you're watching on the replay, go ahead and put them in. I will answer them. I do get notifications, and we try and answer every question. I am going to give you all a moment to kind of put any questions you have in the chat or comments, depending on how you're watching today. And I'm going to give you a moment, and I'm going to give you a couple little, quick tea updates or quick things about tea. And so I want to give you a couple quick facts. Those are the words that we're trying to make it to my brain, but I need the caffeine. Can you tell? All right, so did you know that loose leaf tea has more antioxidants than bagged teas? And this is because typically the leaves are larger, and therefore the leaves hold more of the natural oils. And that is one of those things that people don't realize. It's one of the reasons why I'm always a big proponent of loose leaf tea over bagged. And yes, I have a bag, but I have the big bag with the loose leaf tea inside. And this is one of the last disposable bags that I have. Some of you know that one of the treats that was in your Christmas gifts, for those that ordered anything over Black Friday weekend, I have reusable muslin bags. And I am really excited to be using those because they're nice, they're big, and they're reusable, which means even though this biodegrades in the garden, I don't even want to have to wait for that. So that is fun fact number one. Number two, did you know that the steeping time actually changes the flavors of your tea more than the temperature of your water? So, especially in floral teas, one extra minute can change the amount of sweetness, bitterness, or even the aroma of the tea. So, there you go. Who knew that? Put in the chat or the comments if you knew either of those things. And we should be, yep, I have about 11 seconds. I'm going to wait till I go to my first question. I did have a question text to me yesterday that I love, that it's not one we get very often. There we are. All right. So we're going to take this out 3 minutes for our first brew, put this aside, and I'll have 2 more cups tomorrow before I switch to Highland Dawn or Serene Sunrise. Who knows what I'll end up drinking tomorrow. I might do Emerald Garden. I haven't had that one in a while. All right. I don't see if anybody answered, if they knew that or not. Go ahead and answer. Right now, I'm going to talk about the question that we got yesterday, or the question that we received yesterday, and that is basically, what is the difference between brewing and infusing and steeping? Okay, well, Kim did not know that. The antioxidants, does make sense. It's true, Kim, it does. When you sit and you think about it for a second, loose leaf tea having more antioxidants, it has more than natural oils, it's less processed. The less processed, the healthier it typically is. I didn't realize it either. I was looking for something really, kind of a little different. I don't want to always use the same kinds of things. And I came across that one. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So Diane didn't know either. See? All right. So brewing is the general act of making tea. This is pouring hot water over your leaves. Infusing is a type of brewing, but the emphasis is often on longer steeping, larger quantities of fruits or other flavors or herbs added in. And it typically is associated with more of a richer medicinal extraction, like you're trying to create a beverage, whereas tea is typically that Camellia sinensis plant. Then we add that third word that I've already used a little bit, and that is steeping. So Stephanie has Dancing Plum this evening. There you go. That has been super popular. I want to say thanks to everybody. That has been a super popular blend this fall. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So steeping is what I just did. We can call it brewing, and steeping are similar, but steeping really refers to the amount of time that you are leaving your tea in the hot water. Whereas when you're brewing tea, that is the general act of brewing tea. So those are typically could be used interchangeably. There's slight differences, but in essence, when we talk about brewing versus infusing, in essence, all teas are infusions, but not all infusions are tea. Is everybody back to their logic from school? Is everybody starting to do that? Like A is B, but B is not always A? Yes, that's how we are. So all teas are infusions, but not all infusions are tea. So like I said, brewing is what we do with the true tea. This is this Camellia sinensis plant. This is how long we steep it. It is extracted in water. There are things that we're looking for: time, temperature, the quality of the water, those sort of things. When we're infusing it, we are either brewing the tea in something other than water. For instance, when we make Cuddle in a Cup, we brew or infuse the tea, that Serene Sunrise, in the milk. We steep it in the milk as opposed to in water. So technically, it's an infusion. A lot of times your herbal blends will be more of an infusion. This would include your flowers, your fruits, your spices, roots, herbs, those sort of things. And that's where people can get really confused on how to handle the two things. And sometimes a nice cup of tea cannot be so delicious. For instance, if you brew a tea too hot or too long, it gets bitter. If you brew or infuse your herbal tisanes too short, they'll generally taste more weak and watery. So a lot of stronger brew, longer time brew, that really helps. So there is a quick way to remember this. I'm going to give you the secret. All right, everybody ready? Here's the secret. True tea is delicate. You need to be careful of temperature and time. Herbal infusions are very, very forgiving. If you brew them a little bit too long, as long as you don't have any of the actual tea, Camellia sinensis tea in there, you're going to be okay. If you forget it and it sits there for an extra 5 minutes, it's not going to hurt that herbal infusion. Whereas if you brewed your tea an extra 5 minutes, it can become very bitter. And once your tea has gone bitter, there's just no coming back from that. There's no coming back from that. So, but I thought that was a fun question because we always kind of talk about these words and we select them and we use them interchangeably because we're talking about water, but are they interchangeable? Not exactly. There are some definite differences. Handy dandy assistant is trying to ask one of our people a question apparently about a 45-minute brew. I know that that's happened. So here's the thing. I've done it too. We have a timer on our microwave and we have a timer on our stove. And then I typically don't use the one on my phone very much. But the one on the stove keeps beeping until you answer it. The one in the microwave, if you're just using it as a timer, it'll beep 3 times and then that's it. There's no reminders or anything like that. I have really made an effort to try only to use the timer on the stove where it's constantly beeping at me, because otherwise it's easy to get into that, oh, yep, there's the microwave timer. Let me just finish this one thing that I'm writing and then I'll go upstairs and take my tea out, or I don't because I forget or I get involved, or oh, let me get this one more thing done. And I think we're all guilty of trying to get that one more thing done. And so, yes. Stephanie says she's done not as great, but some of us have issues and take whatever. And see, and Kim uses the one on her wrist. And that's the thing. Whatever timer works best for you. I know when we brew tea before an event, it's not uncommon for us to be using both the stove timer and the microwave timer at the same time. But at that point, we are very cognizant because we are actively brewing tea in batches. And so we are there, and I don't ignore the microwave because that's my sole focus. But when I'm working and all of a sudden the tea goes off, that's why you need the stove. That's why I need the stove timer so it goes off personally. So there you go. So it's not just one of us. I think everybody's done it at one point or another. Okay, so I wanted to. Oh, did you all hear that? Did you all hear that? The handy dandy assistant said he will never admit to ever overbrewing tea. I can witness the fact that he has done it before, but he's not going to admit to it. Okay. Well, I don't know if you realize, but one of the things that I did get was a question on, which was a fun question, is did you realize that tonight is actually the first night of Hanukkah? And so I thought it would be fun to do some meal pairings or traditional things with Hanukkah in mind. And this was kind of a question. They were having their traditional first night and they wanted to know what teas they should consider. So I wanted to be able to answer that question. Okay. So we're going to talk about some traditional dishes and things that a lot of people have. And one of the first things that come up are the latkes, the potato pancakes. I will tell you from personal experience, I have friends that I went to high school with that I grew up with, and having had some, they are really, really yummy. When you're having those, your best tea pairing is going to be a black tea that has some Ceylon in it. A peeling would work. Breakfast blend, morning Irish, Highland Dawn all have some Ceylon in them. They would all work really, really well. Any of those kind of teas. The other option would be a mint tea. So you could go with like a green mint, you could go with an evening mint, especially the chamomile because of the time that they're traditionally starting their dinners and everything. But a mint tea would really pair well with the latkes and a lot of the other meals that they will traditionally eat there. So you're always safe with a nice black tea that has Ceylon in it or a mint tea of some sort. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about that was is I wanted to get into a little bit of the reasoning why. The starch of the potatoes and the oil that they are cooked in, they really are going to bring out their best flavors when you have a tea that's going to kind of cut through some of the richness and that boldness of the black tea from the Ceylon or the bite of the peppermint are both going to do that and then create that balance of contrasts. So there you go. That's one of the reasons why it's such a great thing. All right. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about are the little jelly filled donuts. Forgive my Hebrew because it's been a minute since I've pronounced this one, but sufganiyot. Sufganiyot. I want to say is how you say that the Hebrew jelly filled little donuts. They are delicious. They were one of my favorite things when one of my friends was having Hanukkah, and I got to eat some of the treats with them. Now, if you're gonna have those donuts, I'm going to suggest a white tea blend. This is a perfect time to pull out your leap year tea, Kim, and have that last cup or two. Also, any kind of chamomile blend. So you could be doing like a peacefulness, an evening mint would work, those kind of soothing. The other one that would really pair well would be that ancient green dragon or the emerald garden, something that's going to have that jasmine green tea. It's going to have some herbal notes, but it's going to be a very light tea. Those would all be perfect to pair against those delicious little donuts. And that's what I'm going to call them because my Hebrew is just not what it once was. But the gentleness of the teas is really what's going to bring out that fruity filling and make it shine in a way that a harsher black tea wouldn't. It's going to overpower it a little bit. Still delicious, but you're not going to get quite as much of that fruit filling really shining. Yes.
What about a harmony?
I wouldn't go with the harmony on this one. Betsy says she thinks the remaining cups of that tea is scheduled. I wouldn't be surprised, Betsy. I really wouldn't be surprised. I wonder sometimes if she actually has it like under a locking key someplace in the house, hidden away where no one can find it, so no one can accidentally drink it on her. Okay, but the lighter teas are really going to make it shine. Uh, so I would say no to the harmony. You could, but it depends on kind of what the fruity filling of your donuts would be, whether it would complement or contrast. And the orange is going to bring a little bit more of the zing, where you want a slightly more delicate flavor. Uh, Not horrible. You really were looking for that sweetness of the jasmine green tea. Okay, so brisket and chicken dishes are very popular all throughout Hanukkah. And so I am going to definitely be suggesting an oolong tea. Earthy teas like oolong are really going to balance that savoriness especially ones that have a very slow cooked flavor like the brisket would, it's really going to have the smokiness of the tea from the oolong balancing out with the, especially the brisket. Okay. Let's see. Mock down on her teas. Rationing teas is real. Stephanie is saying rationing teas is real. I understand. Now, I didn't mean to give Kim the idea of locking it up and hiding it, but Kim says, or Betsy says it's currently locked down under glare and threat. I mean, that's pretty substantial when the lady of the household is giving you the lockdown and the glare and the threat. Yeah, if we needed to get the kids' attention, we would do the one really sharp snap, and it could be across you could be across a concert, a rock concert, and my kids could hear that particular pitch, and they knew to start acting. So yeah, if they got close to mine, I could just snap when they were little, and it would have worked. But so I don't know, but I guess we'll see. We'll have to have a check back next week and see if any locks were purchased. Anyway, the oolong is really going to go well with the brisket or the chicken, especially with the way that they are traditionally seasoned. It's going to be just a really great, and that's one of the reasons why holiday is the perfect one, because you've got the oolong, you've got the cranberry, you've got the orange zest and the vanilla in it, and that's really going to kind of smooth out a lot of those same flavors in having that oolong. Fun fact about Hanukkah, there is a tradition in some households where you actually sip a warm mint tea after your heavy holiday meals to help with digestion. So tea has been for many families a part of their Hanukkah meals way longer than many of us realized. Let's see.
You already get there.
All right. So if oolong isn't your jam, what else would go with brisket? So if you wanted to go a little less smoky, I would move more towards a Highland Dawn or a breakfast blend. I wouldn't quite go as bold as like Morning Irish. Golden Vanilla, which would add a softness to it. I like the idea almost of, you could do like the appealing that I have right now, where you've got the apples and the cinnamon kind of smoothing out the flavor a little bit. Serene Sunrise for kind of the same reason, just so that it's not quite as much of a harsh black tea or a bold black tea. Those would be really good with a beef brisket. Yeah, especially, yes, that's true. Especially if that brisket was smoked with an apple wood, you're gonna have the apple playing off the brisket as well as the appealing tea. That's where I would kind of fall if you were in a dire situation and you only had Morning Irish. You know, you've got the boldest blend, the sharpest blend. I would underbrew the tea a little bit, so it's not quite. I would weaken the tea. Basically, I might use a little less and brew it the correct amount of time, or I would use the correct amount of tea and broil it a little. Brew it. Words are not coming to my mouth right this second. I would brew it a little short. Instead of 3 minutes for the first brew, I might do like a 2-minute and taste and test it. Either way, you're not going to get that full flavor. It'll be slightly softer flavor. Add more water in, however you want to do it, just to soften it up a little bit. That's also when typically you might want to add a sweetener in there. And the one I would go for in that situation to balance with the brisket or the chicken would typically be honey, as opposed to any of the other ones, because it's going to bring out so many of the barbecues, or the honey notes are really going to compare. So, but I thought that was fun, and I wanted to talk about that because it is the first night of Hanukkah, and so it was an appropriate night to do it. And then I got a question about it, which was really, really exciting. So, all right, another question: what are some teas that taste totally different versus iced versus hot? So cold brew versus a hot brew, and that's always a fun question, because the flavor really does change depending on temperature. Number one, anything with hibiscus in it. Hibiscus has a completely different flavor with a cold brew versus brewed as a hot tea. Oolong is actually another one. Depending on the temperature, you can bring out different flavors in it. Green teas, because green teas do really well as an iced tea or as a cold brew because they don't need to get as hot, but they'll still have an herbier note to them if they're a cold brew. It's a slight difference, but there is a difference. So okay, and I'm looking over here just to see if I see any other questions or anything. All right, so another question we have is, my tea tasted kind of flat. What are some of the fixes? And so I am going to simply say, number one, if your tea is not old, if it's past its time, remember it diminishes in flavor. I'm going to say check your water quality. Check your water temperature and then the amount of tea that you put in there. And then the other thing is, how many times have you boiled the water? If you're boiling water, how many times have you reused the water? Every time you boil water, the oxygen level reduces. So when you rebrew that same water, it'll have less oxygen in it, so the flavor will change, and sometimes it can dull the flavor. So those would be the top things that I would suggest. The biggest thing is getting that tea to water ratio and then using really good quality water. We recently were working on a project. It was a craft project that we wanted to do as a gift for a friend, and we don't typically drink tap water here because our water is super hard. And even with the water softener, that just makes our water have higher sodium content, and that's not good for migraines. So we actually will buy our purified water. And so for the craft, we were thinking there was no reason to go ahead and use the expensive water that we have to purchase. So I used some tap water, and it had a reaction to some of the other items in there and kind of flaked up. And so because the water flaked up, I was like, ooh, oh. And then I kept thinking, this is why we always say, ideally, that spring water, that purified water, those are what you want to brew your tea with so that it doesn't fall flat, because some of those minerals can just dull out the flavor. It is, remember, as you recall, that's why there's a different amounts of and balance of the black teas for English breakfast, Irish breakfast, and Scottish breakfast teas. It is because they changed it because of the water. That is why those exist, to kind of, because the harder the water is, the more robust the tea needs to be to have the same amount of flavor, because it dulls it down. So, and hello to Louisa. Okay, so that was another question that we had. Okay. I laughed when I saw this one because this question may be a little controversial. I will be honest right now. This question might be a little controversial. Is there a tea you should never add milk to? Oh boy, here we go. I would say yes. There are teas that you should never add milk to. And I am one for my black teas. I grew up having tea with my grandparents, and it had sugar in it, not a lot, but it had sugar in it, and it had milk in it. So a lot of black teas, it's not uncommon for me to still make my teas that way. Or tea lattes where you're having that steamed milk and then you're adding that in there. Those are in my brain, very acceptable things. However, there are people who have green tea lattes and they add milk to green tea. I typically don't add milk to my green teas, to my white teas, or even my oolongs. I typically only add them to my black teas and my unflavored black teas. So I wouldn't necessarily add them to a peeling, but I would add them to Highland Dawn or Serene Sunrise, if that makes sense. So that's the thing. And then Diane's right. And my other thing is I typically do not add milk to an herbal tea, an herbal tisane, right? However, now I'm going to throw out some options where you might. If you have mocha mint, where you have the cacao nibs and you have peppermint, a lot of people will turn that into a latte. And so they're adding milk to it. So they're making kind of like a peppermint hot chocolate with it, except it's got the tea base to it. So there are going to be exceptions. And ultimately, you have to decide. Hard and fast rule. I would say nothing that has lemon in it. And the reason for that is we've all learned from being kids, you don't put lemon and milk in the same thing because the lemon causes the milk to curdle. And unless you're doing an emergency substitute for buttermilk, it's not going to be very fun to drink. It's not going to look as fun either. So that is going to be something. Not lemon. I would even kind of stay away from the citruses. Now, a lot of people will also say the hard and fast rule for a lot of tea people is to not have any milk with a white tea. White tea is very light and delicate. And that's why I typically will pair them with like fruit or other lighter flavors because they're very easy to overpower. Those are some. I'm never going to tell you you absolutely can't, but my suggestion is you not put milk in a white tea, any kind of tea with lemon. I personally don't put milk in any of my herbal teas or in any of my green teas. And typically not even any black teas that have a fruit in them. But those are my choices. That's kind of how I would do it. I'm never going to tell you what you can and can't do with your tea. It's just like some people don't believe you should sweeten your tea at all, whereas other people, other cultures around the world have extraordinarily sweet tea. And I'm not just talking about the Southeast US. I'm talking across the world. They have a ton of different sweeteners, and it becomes very powerful. So I don't want to give a hard and fast rule because everybody has their personal preference. Again, we're going to come down to white teas and a lemon or a citrus-based tea are really, I'm going to recommend not. But I thought it was a fun question because, there are always times where people are like, well, what is the rule? If you wanted to make a tea latte with Emerald Garden or Ancient Green Dragon, you can. In my brain, I just don't do it. Rich even said Iraqi tea is severely sweet, So, okay, handy dandy assistant, I'm putting you on the spot here. You've had Iraqi tea made by the Iraqis, and you've had Southern sweet tea. Which is sweeter? Iraqi tea is sweeter than Southern sweet tea. That kind of freaks me out a little bit because I know how much sugar goes in a Southern sweet tea. So that's a lot.
You're talking about a 4-ounce glass.
A 4-ounce glass.
With 2 tablespoons of raw sugar.
With 2 tablespoons of raw sugar. Unprocessed.
Sugar. And then they fill it up with strong black tea.
Black tea. So that's how the Iraqis, locals, made their tea when he was there. So yeah, that's a lot of sugar for a little bit. So it's going to be a personal preference. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a little bit of sweetness in some of your teas. I don't need it in all my teas, but some of them it's nice. All right, another question I had for today. That's impressive, Betsy said. Yes. Or Betsy said, yes, it is impressive. I had never thought to ask him because I remember him telling me how sweet it was over there because he would do a lot of the locals and did a lot of work with locals. And so he would be invited to the how they ate their food and things like that. And so I never thought about which tea was sweeter, Southern sweet tea or that. So there's my question for the day. Okay, another question we received for tonight was, what is the most misunderstood brewing rule?
You boil it for 5 minutes.
Okay. I would say that's number 2, handy dandy assistant. I would say that's number 2. Number 1, most misunderstood rule is that green tea should be added to boiling water. That is, green tea is really way too delicate to have the water boiled. So boil your water, let the water, if you can only boil water and it's on or off, and that's fine. Let it cool, boil it, let it cool, or catch it before it boils, but let it cool for a while, and you should be able to. I usually tell people if it just was boiling, let it sit for 3-ish minutes, depending on, this cup is my tea is going to cool a heck of a lot quicker than if I had something that was insulated, or a double insulated one. So you're going to have to kind of judge it, but let it sit that 2 to 3 minutes. That's about where it is. Sometimes I'll tell people to let it sit longer. It depends on the cup that you're using, or if you're using one of those travel infusers. I'll typically tell someone a very specific time because of my experience, but you get to a certain point where 2 or 3 minutes in, you should be able to do it. And again, it matters. Is it covered? Is it uncovered? There's so many variables, but do not use green tea in boiling water. It will burn the tea leaves. It will make it much more bitter, and you will not get the wonderful, delicate flavors. So that is one of those suggestions that I have. The other thing, the second most misunderstood tea brewing or tea mistake would be over brewing. But I think we handled that earlier when we all admitted sometimes when we brew it too long. Kim's question is, why is there a gingerbread man in the corner of the screen? They had it free on the software, and I thought it would be a fun Christmassy type of thing to add into the screen today. So yes, that's why there's one. I just thought it would be fun. They had one that had a huge border, but I was like, that's too much. I love how you all ask about that. No, I'm not a Grinch. I was looking for a couple of cute ones. They have some, and I thought the gingerbread was not obtrusive. It could be kind of over there in the little corner, and we would be good. Stephanie kept tapping the gingerbread man. Hey, those kinds of things can happen. I'm not there yet, but it could happen at some point. They have the software that I use to put this out so that it's on the Facebook and YouTube and the other options. So at the same time, I use that, and it pulls all the comments in from all the different genres. Like, so somebody could comment on YouTube at the same time, and I see that at the same time someone's commenting on Facebook, and I see that at the same time. They have these, and I thought they would be fun. I anticipate then in January we'll have snowflakes. I anticipate there'll be hearts or something in February. Shamrocks and morning Irish. So a bunch of people. See, you're not even alone, Stephanie. A bunch of people were tapping on the screen. Yeah, so it's just a little decoration. But like I said, they have huge. Here, I will show you. Hang on. Let me go over here. I didn't realize this was going to be the question, but all right, there you go. See how that's like so much busier? I liked the little gingerbread. And then they came out with them a little too late, but there's the turkey one for Thanksgiving. So, and this one just said happy holidays, but I liked the gingerbread man a little bit better.
So the comments disappeared and tapped it again.
The comments disappeared and then they tapped it again and came back. See, there you go. That's what happened. I love it. Great question. And that's the fun, you know. I'm glad you think it's cute. I just thought it was a little bit of fun, you know, a little bit of seasonal flair in there. I know this is a new thing and they're kind of continuing to roll them out as each holiday season goes. So you may see some more. I like the little ones that are just there in the corner though. And see, Diane likes the border. Diane likes the border. Well, we'll see what happens. Um, it's kind of distracting, maybe just too much for me when I'm trying to look at my notes and everything else. And gingerbread does go really well with tea. I have to say, at lunch today, I was chatting with some people, some of my friends, and we were talking about how we were at the potluck, and I had originally thought to bring a dessert, but then I thought because I was going to make some cranberry orange madeleines and some blueberry madeleines, and I thought that would be really nice, you know, because they're small, they're not that big, they don't take a ton of time, but I thought, everybody's been eating cookies and treats, and people have been going to parties, and so they've probably already had a lot of sugar, so they won't be as interested. And then I was at the table that where my friends were, they were like, "Yeah, I haven't had any yet. I haven't started my baking yet. I haven't done any of that." And I was like, "Okay, maybe I should have brought the desserts." But that's the thing. I do have some ginger snap cookies upstairs tucked away that I would like to eat over the next week or two, or actually over the next week, because otherwise they'll go bad before I get back. But and they're really really great with with um the lemon zinger, Diane, but they're also good with like a peeling. They're a great holiday cookie because they really do bring out the flavor in a lot of the black teas. Anything with ginger in it, any of the chai blends, they'll go really really well. Okay. I'm glad we I love that you all asked about the gingerbread man. But yes, and then I'm always talking about ginger snap cookies or gingerbread cookies, gingerbread, gingerbread muffins, you know, those kind of the molasses really brings out a lot of nice flavors in a lot of the I do want to I didn't have any other questions unless you all have questions. So this is your opportunity. Go ahead and put them in the chat or the comments, depending on how you're watching. Say hello, but put your questions in there. I am going to do a couple of quick reminders. Number one, holiday and dancing plum. I know, Stephanie, that's what you're drinking tonight. And that ends December 31st. That will be the end until next year. Those two flavors will come back. I promise you, Dancing Plum will come back. I've actually gotten quite a bit of pressure for that one to not be a one time and never see it again. That will come back in October. But if you wanted to know which seasonal teas are coming back and when they're going to be, here is an announcement that I was going to next. It's a perfect segue. On the website, there is a new page. Woo! And I want to say, I don't remember what I called it. So now I'm going to have to go to the website really quick because I can't remember what I called it. And there we go. So seasonal tea calendar. If you go on Nona's Kitchen Secrets.com, there's a seasonal tea calendar, and it literally takes you all the way through the year which seasonal blends are available when. It gives you a little description of what they're like. I would say we are looking at one or two more seasonal teas to kind of potentially come out. We don't have a lot in that. There's like that March, April timeframe. So we might have one there, and then there might be one in the summer. We haven't decided yet. But there is a listing of all the teas and when those seasonal teas will be available on the website now. It was good with Hearthfire. Yeah, I love Hearthfire. I love Hearthfire and ginger snap cookies. Yes, I've actually had those together. Very, very, very yummy. I have to say that was probably our most surprising limited edition tea this year. Is I liked it, and then the more I drank it, the more I realized I really loved that hearth fire. So, Stephanie, I am telling you that we have freeze-dried pumpkins, and we have already started to try and play around with a pumpkin spice tea or a pumpkin tea for next September. Yes, that is one of the possibilities. So we have started to play around. I'm not guaranteeing. The first step was to make sure that we got a consistent flavor on the freeze-dried pumpkin. We've done that. The next thing was to make sure that it could stand up to multiple brews. And now it's a matter of what other flavors do we want to include? What other flavors do we not want to include? Yes, we have 3 entire decent sized pie pumpkins that we freeze dried just so that we would have plenty. The problem with like the apples and the pumpkin and some of the other fruits is they don't come out until after they're released. Like, so the pie pumpkins didn't come out till September. Well, I have to have them for September because it would probably come out at the same time as that appealing does. And so I have to do it in advance. So it takes a season, and this will give us plenty of time. But yes, we are at the point now where we've tested out. It does stand up to the 3 brews. We have perfected how we want it to come out in the freeze dryer. The next step is to just start playing with flavors, which I will be quite honest, we will not start doing until January. And then we'll start playing around with flavors and then potentially going to testers, etc.
Are we going to need volunteer testers?
I don't know if anybody wants to volunteer to test that. I don't think anybody's interested in that, except no, I'm joking with you, Stephanie. But yes, then it potentially will put it out to testers at some point, because I think that's one that's going to be. It may have to go back and forth more than most of them do, just because I want to, like our chai took almost a year and a half before Ruby Chai was perfected to the point where we were ready to put it out. And now it seems to be the ones that we struggle over a little bit tend to end up being some of the best ones we have, the best sellers that we have. So that is it. But I did want to say Holiday and Dancing Plum are going to end soon, but I know this will make some people here very, very happy. When you look on that calendar, you're going to see that Winter's Kiss and Starlight Pair begin in January for the general public. If you are part of our VIP, which it's free to be a VIP, just reach out to me and I can get you added to that list. They will actually be having it available sometime this week. So they get access to teas early, and then they get access to teas that the general public doesn't get access to. But they also get some things like that. So Starlight Pair and Winter's Kiss will be back in January. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of that, let you all know, remind you, looking at the holidays. But I thought that calendar would be helpful. We have had people request to put in what weeks we're at shows and things. My son doesn't like us to do that. He doesn't like he's pretty strict on like, can't use Wi-Fi here, don't use this, don't use that. And one of the other things is for safety reasons, we have to kind of think about, like, does it make sense to post when we're not going to be home for a few days, that sort of thing. So right now, all that's going on there will be the seasonal teas. One other big announcement, and then another reminder. I have been asked to teach a couple classes in the Manhattan area, the Ogden, Manhattan area. And so these will be in-person classes, and we will be doing kind of a tea 101 where we're going to kind of do tea flights and tea tastings and different things like that, and tea basics. But the other one is going to be a mocktail class where we are going to you're going to make some of your own mocktails and things like that. And then we do still have, I know we're trying to convince one person to come visit so that they can take part in person, but we will have that custom tea making class. That's all starting to come up in February through May of next year. And then of course, January is hot tea month. So we are going to be doing that showdown. We're going to see what the most popular flavor is. And that's all planned out. There are definitely going to be some prizes in there. No pressure, Stephanie. No pressure. Okay, and then next week, I'm going to keep it a surprise. I have 2 different ideas that have been warring in my mind. Kim's going to jump on the bandwagon with that one. I have 2 different things in my mind, so we'll see which one we are going to do next week for our live. But I don't see any other questions. I see harassment of some people in our comments. Yep, mocktails and cocktails. You know, I can always tell you what you could potentially add. The fun thing is I have been chatting with a bartender who does a lot of mocktail or in cocktail creations for a restaurant in Salina. We've been chatting over email because it tends to be the most convenient. Our schedules are almost opposite. And so I've got some input on some really fun mocktails coming up. But I wanted to say that's what's kind of coming up. Those are some of your reminders coming up. I will hope you all have a warmer week than we've had 24-hour period in time. Stay safe, stay well, and we will see you all next week. Everybody have a wonderful week. We'll see you later.
Drink water.